All right, welcome, narrative nerds. So when I was working on the Dragon Age Inquisition video the other day, I had no idea that we were going to be able to turn right around and get into talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard so quickly. Here it is. It's been 3 days, I believe, since I released that video. And we have just had, this morning, we had the drop of the official release date trailer. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to take a look at that while I offer some commentary and some insights on what I see regarding this trailer and clues that it could be giving us about the narrative for Dragon Age the Veilguard, as well as some insights that this might be clarifying for prior game lore or prior game narrative elements. Without further ado, let's get into it.
You have no idea what you have done. The blighted Elven Gods walk free.
This second shot, we see that we are in a Fade sort of environment, but there's a couple of things here that I wanted to point out with the second shot and the second line that we had in this trailer. So the second shot, we see that there are these statue figures, and if you were paying attention during the gameplay trailer, during the gameplay reveal trailer, there is a sequence where Rook and the party members are trying to interrupt a ritual that Solus is performing, and these statues, each of which is representative of an individual in the Evanuris, the Elven Pantheon. And so what we're looking at here appears to be a Fade representation of the ritual site where Solus and Rook are both present. And Solus appears to be lecturing Rook. But what I want to focus on with this is this second line. So first we see that even the captions for this have Elven Gods in quotation marks. And this is very indicative of how Solus feels about the Evanuris. We already know that he has expressed that they are not true gods, that they are just powerful mages who pretended to be gods, and that he harbors a grudge with them over it. But more importantly, I see this word blighted here. He's telling us something with this word. We know that this word blight is very important in the context of Dragon Age lore. It's not used lightly, and it is almost always connected with the taint centered around the Darkspawn. In Dragon Age Origins, we saw the fifth blight as the centerpiece for that narrative. And in that context, we saw blighted as a reference to that Darkspawn taint. Here, it is most likely that the word is also being applied in the same way. The Elven Gods are blighted or tainted with the same magics that are a part of the Darkspawn corruption. So that is what I see here, and I could be wrong. It is entirely possible that I'm wrong, and this is just a word that he is casually throwing out. But if we have any experience with BioWare, we know that they're not very casual about how they throw out narrative elements. So I would suspect that that's going to be the case.
Free. All because you disrupted my ritual.
You battle.
Okay, so here's another element that I wanted to bring up because it's going to be relevant to future elements of the trailer, and it's very brief. I just wanted to discuss how we see two figures here alongside Solus. This has already been tackled pretty well in the gameplay reveal trailer, but it is believed that this figure on the left is Gillenane, and we see that she has this downward crest. and these tentacle elements. But on the right, we also have Elgarnon, and we see that he has these upward shoulder spikes and this upward crescent crest on his head. So keep in mind these elements as we go forward into the trailer and see if we can find any of them reflected in other aspects. All right?
You battle against gods. They will not rest until you are on your knees. Fearful, cowering, helpless in the...
Okay, so this is a very quick shot, and it's very blurry. It'd be very hard for me to get this again, but here we have a clearer image of Elgarnon on the left and Gillenane on the right. So we can see more clearly that these are tentacle elements on Gillenane, and we can also see that Elgarnon appears to have metal adornments on these shoulder spikes and metal adornment on this crescent crest on his head, whereas Gillenane appears to have more of these. There's less of a reflection on this crest for Gillenane, which suggests that it's probably made of some bone type material, something with sort of a matte element to it, which tones down that reflection. We see it very strong on this side, but everywhere else it is very dull. Whereas we see the same dullness in these intermittent periods on the shoulder spikes for Elgarnon, but all this metal stuff, we see very, very high reflection.
In the face of such power.
Okay, so we have our first dragon of the trailer. I don't see anything super significant about this one as of the moment.
Rook, you've got this. I've seen your work. You're clever, adaptable.
All right, this could be the same dragon that we were just seeing. The only thing that I see about it is some additional glow that might be indicative of it preparing to breathe fire.
And to quit.
Or it could be elements of corruption.
You want allies to go after the gods? I've got places to look.
Where do we start?
So here we see the same site in Arlathan Forest that the gameplay trailer revealed to us. However, all of these towers are no longer standing. So this is after the intervention in Solus's ritual. We don't see much else different about this shot. We do see that the trees are still standing. Some of the statues we can still see the crests of in the shot. But I've seen a few people who have been very aware of this. So we know that this takes place later. We don't know much else about this image from this still. I do want to point out that we do see this floating debris here. That was something that we saw a lot of in Dragon Age Inquisition, was floating debris in relation to Fade Rifts. So that is something that we could be seeing reflected in this shot.
I'll be damned.
Okay, so here we have one of our companions, the Grey Warden companion.
Be damned. A griffin.
Finding a griffin and fighting Darkspawn. So it is believed that is taking place in Weisshaupt. Weisshaupt being the center of the Grey Warden command structure is out of Weisshaupt. This This shot here appears to be Weisshaupt. So that is something that we are going to be likely able to explore in this game, which for those who have been wanting a return to Grey Warden activity since Dragon Age Origins, it looks like we're going to be getting a more robust interaction with the Grey Wardens.
I'll be damned. A griffin. In war, victory. I'm ready.
I've
All right, so
never seen this
what
before.
else are we seeing here? So this object, I'm not quite clear on. It looks like it has something to do with potentially the Tevinter Imperium. We see a lot of this more angular design elements out of the Tevinter Imperium. It doesn't appear to me to be consistent with elements that we've seen from the Evanuris or from the dwarves or anything of that nature. But it is entirely possible that this is a relic that is more akin to the orb that we saw in Dragon Age Origins, that that Solus was apparently the creator of, or the user of, when he created the veil between the Fade and the material world. So this could be something similar that we're seeing. However, I'm given to believe that this is more in line with the Tevinter Imperium. If you think back to Dragon Age Inquisition, there are a lot of ancient Tevinter Imperium caches that you can find that have these more angular shapes to their design.
Something kind of exciting about it.
Okay, so right here, this is something that I have seen people comment on the emotional weight of, but I haven't seen anybody really point this out yet. So this figure here on the left is Scout Harding, and she appears to have just cast a spell on a couple of Darkspawn ghouls. Now, if this is the case, this is something entirely revolutionary for the Dragon Age universe. Because, as I'm sure you're aware, Scout Harding is a dwarf, and dwarfs do not cast magic. They can't. They are incapable of it. So, if we think about this, we see that she has these sort of lyrium-looking veins on her as she's casting this petrification spell. We do know that dwarves are tied to rune crafting and enchanting. They're capable of working enchantments because of their lyrium immunity. However, they're unable to cast spells. We see her casting something that appears to be a spell. She's not breaking a rune here. She's not using a rune. And to enforce that is this next line.
What is happening to me?
So she's clearly confused by what's happening. So my speculation here is that the return of the Evanuris has awoken the Titans. We know that the Titans are the progenitors of the dwarves, and we also know that the Titans have lyrium running through their veins. They are the lyrium that we use in the prior games is literally the blood of the Titans, and the Titans, we know from prior game lore that they were defeated by the Evanuris. They were conquered by the Evanuris, and they went underground. So that is something that we probably see here, is that the Titans have reawoken because of the return of the Evanuris. And so consequently, what we could be seeing in this shot here with Scout Harding is that the reawakening of the Titans has awoken latent magical ability in dwarves. And it could be that this latent magical ability is more potent or less potent than traditional magic, but it is likely connected to the dwarven connection to the Titans. So that's something that we should keep in mind as we go into this game.
What is happening to me?
Let the Fade draw close!
Draw the dragon out into the open. Then attack.
So this appears to be... It's hard for me to say whether this is the same dragon that we saw earlier or if this is a different dragon. So I'm not gonna get into too much speculation on this. But it is something that may bear
You
more
and me, Brooke.
investigation.
Maybe that's what scares me.
These are the times in which legends are born, or
Obviously, everybody's excited to see Claudia Black and Morrigan. Claudia Black being the voice actress who plays Morrigan, but everybody is excited to see Morrigan return. Looks like she's got a new character design to her, with new garments, and it looks like this could potentially be a modified version of Mythal's crest, so maybe she's taken on the mantle of Mythal in this game in some respect. As we know from prior games, Mythal was the actual identity of Flemeth, or well, there is a connection between Mythal and Flemeth, and Flemeth raised Morrigan, so perhaps Mythal was preparing Morrigan to take over that stewardship of Mythal's soul, and maybe now it has been passed down to her. I know we had some interaction in Dragon Age Inquisition where we saw Mythal being consumed more or less by Soulless, so there is a potential that they're going to work in something regarding that here. We do know that Mythal was very protective and always had fail-safes in place, and I doubt that she would have allowed Soulless to betray her in some way, especially given their lengthy connection. She knows how tricky Finn Harel can be. She has the longest history of any character with him. So definitely see some elements here that indicate that Morrigan has developed a higher level of power than we've seen her have previously.
are born or slain.
Our gods are back.
So there is another line right there that's worth paying attention to. Our gods are back. So this could be a reference to either the Tevinter Imperium, maybe we're seeing some element of the old gods returning, but it's almost certainly a account of what's going on with the elves. So let's view this in the context of the elves are this disparate people. They're spread to the four corners of the earth, and they're second-class citizens everywhere they go, but now their gods are back. And so do they want to fight against them, or do they want to fight for them? If they fight for them, they could reclaim some level of power in the world. If they fight against them, then they could potentially gain some status in the world amongst their peer races. So this is something that we're probably gonna see develop in this game, is this dichotomy between their choices. And these are not necessarily the only choices that they're going to have, but it's definitely something that I would explore if I was designing the narrative for this game, is the element that they could use their connection to their gods to retake control and finally rebuild Arlathan, or to avoid that connection and embrace the connection of the other people in the world.
Our gods! How do we stand against
All right,
that?
so we have one archdemon here, and so this is something that is definitely going to take place, and it reinforces what I was saying earlier about the Grey Warden involvement. We're going to see the Grey Wardens. This is definitively a archdemon. So that's something that we need to be looking forward to, is we're fighting a blight while we're fighting these elven gods.
I believe in all of us, so let's get it done.
Okay, so right there, we see this dragon appear. And this is a very distinct dragon. It's very different from the other dragons that we've seen in this trailer so far. We've seen the Archdemon before. This is not an Archdemon. This is the physical dragon manifestation of Elgar'nan. We know this because the upward crest on the head, and then we are also reinforced with this next shot where we see this wolf-like beast leaping at that same dragon. And more importantly, this wolf-like beast has multiple eyes. Not just 2 eyes, but on this side of the head alone, 3 eyes. And this is something that we have seen repeatedly with Finn-Harel, is this multiple-eyed wolf. And so this is a beast form of Finn-Harel. And this is a beast form of Elgar'nan. So what we see here, if you've played the previous games, then you might have come across some lore elements that indicated that there were beast forms that were reserved for the Evanuris, and that at some point there was some animosity between Finn-Harel and the Evanuris because he had adopted one of these beast forms that was reserved for the gods. And so this is likely that beast form. And this is likely the beast form for Elgar'nan that was reserved for the gods. So these great beast forms were reserved for the Evanuris. Finn-Harel adopted one, and he was not allowed to. And this caused some great schism between him and the other elven gods. Alright, so this right here may be the most important shot of the entire trailer. What we see here is 2 archdemons. And so we know that neither of these archdemons is that Elgar'nan dragon that we just saw. So what we see here is the 2 remaining archdemons, which we know to be the old gods of the Tevinter Imperium. It would be very coincidental for us to see 2 archdemons emerge at the same time that we see 2 Evanuris elven gods return. So what is likely being illustrated in this shot is that there is a deep connection between the elven gods and the old gods of the Tevinter Imperium. Now, my hypothesis for this would be that the old gods are some sort of avatar of the elven pantheon, of the Evanuris, and that the reason we see 2 and 2 is because the other 5 old gods have been slain, and so we do not see the other 5 members of the Evanuris because there is no anchor for them in the material world. So they cannot return. They're unable to return. And so maybe they're defeated entirely. Maybe they're destroyed. I'm not certain. But there is evidence to suggest that there were dragons who were, in some sense, soul bonded to the Elven pantheon. And this could be the case. Maybe the old gods of the Tevinter Imperium were these soul-bonded dragons to the Evanuris. But more importantly, this could show us that if that's the case, if the old gods were soul-bonded to the Evanuris, then what is likely going to be revealed is that the Tevinter Magisters were lured into the Fade by the Evanuris. To what end? Well, obviously, the Evanuris would not want to be isolated to the Fade. And so they would be plotting and scheming, trying to break out. So how would you do that? I would do it by trying to get the most powerful mages of the age to try to break open my prison. And so in Dragon Age Inquisition, Corypheus tells us that the Magisters, they found the Blight already in the Fade when they arrived. The throne of the Maker was empty, and the city of the gods was empty, desolate, and already black. So this has some pretty significant ramifications for the lore of Dragon Age. The Chant of Light is clearly wrong. We already know that because Solus created the veil between the Fade and the material world. So we know that it was not the Maker, it was Solus who did that. The dichotomy there didn't always exist. So what we know beyond that, if this becomes common knowledge, then the Chantry loses the majority of its power. Additionally, we see the return of the blighted Elven Gods. So this, as I outlined earlier, this has ramifications for the elves and for their religious beliefs. But it also has ramifications for the Tevinter Imperium, or for the Tevinter Tevinter as it exists now, because their contrary view of the Chant of Light is challenged by this. If the old gods are avatars of the Evanuris, and the Evanuris lured the Magisters into the city, or into the Fade, to release them, then even they were deceived in the old days. So there is no evidence of any religion being right. And so these are just some of the things that I've been thinking of with this trailer today. And I think I'm getting a little long-winded with it, so I'm just going to continue on. All right. So evidently this is coming out October 31st this year. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't understand why this was not the official reveal trailer. And I believe that most people will agree with me on that. But I would highly recommend that if you're interested in this story, in this franchise, to go back and replay some of these games in the next couple of months. There's a lot of lore to get into. I'll definitely be covering more of that lore on the channel. So keep an eye out for those videos to come. And if you find anything in this that you would like to share, mention it in the comments below. If you have anything that you believe that I got wrong, please let me know. and we'll see about trying to do some updates as we go. So without any further ado, I want to wish you a good night. Thank you for coming. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new here.